Hello. This video is intended to provide an overview of the Week 10 assignment informal proposal for the final paper. And this will be a fairly informal walkthrough. So, first thing to keep in mind is that what this assignment is doing is providing a proposal or really a set of ideas and things that you are interested in pursuing for future assignments. Ultimately, the assignment that this will lead into is the final paper. Um, Before the final paper, you'll complete what's called an annotated bibliography. But let's look at the final piece first. So if I click on that and I have it here, this will give you an overview and explanation of the final paper. So this is something that you should read fairly closely before you do the proposal piece. So you would read through it, look at the different avenues, the possibilities. Uh, the main focus or topic that you will be looking at, but there are so many different avenues from which you could go related to this, will be education or the workplace related to artificial intelligence. And you can see some of the possible avenues in some of these discussions or some of these questions that are put here. How should educational institutions integrate AI into the curriculum? So this could be a question you start looking at, and then from there you turn it into a uh, working thesis, et cetera, et cetera. Now, one thing also to be aware of is the sources. So what I've listed here are the sources that we've already read in the course. Uh, Having said that, I believe there's one which I don't think I required. I noticed this when I was just reviewing this that I must have intended to include in the course, but I don't think um, I actually did, unless I'm forgetting it. But I'm going to leave it on the list because it was there and people might have already started working on it. Um, but all the other ones are ones that we've already read in the course. And so you can find those in Perusal, and you can, through Perusal, you can download the file as well. They're listed in alphabetical order by author, not by the order in which they were presented in the course. Now, for the um, for the sources, again, I'm talking right now about the final paper, so it helps you understand where we're going. Um, for the final paper, you will use a minimum of four sources to support your argument, introduce discussions, that type of thing. A minimum of four sources. Now, at least two of them should come from this list here. So what that will do is it will ensure that you're using some material from the course. It's really intended to give you a jumping off point. So if you found something really interesting in one or two of the articles, you could start with those and then move forward with it. Now, I also note, because one of the goal for this course, ENG 109 and ENG 101, is not actually full-fledged research. It's to incorporate source-based evidence into your work, but it's actually doing the actual research, meaning looking through library databases and going through that whole process is not actually one of the key learning goals for this course. That's more of a ENG 102 thing. But you have learned a little bit about that in some of the readings. You've done some work with that. And so you may find additional sources outside of this. outside of the sources listed here. So you may say, okay, I'm going to use two from this list, and then I'm going to use two that I found somewhere else, or three that I found somewhere else, as long as I use two from here. Um, but it's also an option to use just the sources that are listed here. Um, so that because I don't want to make it a requirement that you need to actually do outside research. I'm assuming many of you will do some outside research uh, to find sources that will fit your topic. Um, so that's something to keep in mind. So that's what we're working on here. That's basically the idea of the final paper. Now, when I go to the week 10 assignment, what you'll notice is what you're doing is you're choosing an area of focus that interests you. And what you're submitting is a 200 to 300 word informal proposal that includes the following elements. And you can actually label these elements. And what you'll see from this is that it's really things that are helping you develop a possible focus for this paper. It's not going to be final. In other words, like you're not stuck with what you have here, uh, but it will provide me with an idea of what you're thinking, so that I can set you on the right track, and it can provide you with the necessary um, thinking that goes into research, thinking about key things like research question, preliminary thesis, which would be the main point of your topic. Um, and then that brings us to potential sources. So it says list at least two sources from the provided list that we just looked at, that you think will be useful for the paper, and explain why you chose these each source, 1 to 2 sentences. So for this one, for the potential sources, I am asking that you choose them from the list that provided, again, because the list is intended to give you a jumping off point from sources that you already have encountered. If you want to include additional sources there, um, I'm okay with that. So if there's additional ones, if there's another source that you found that you also want to include, you can do that. Um, but it should be at least two, and two from the list. And you should submit this as a Word document or a PDF. So we'll maintain the formatting aspects. Now, what I did to give you a sense of this, I actually plugged this information into Claude, which is a generative AI piece, and told it to. I gave it the information, and I said, "Help me create a sample for this assignment." Um, and it says, "Okay, I will help you do that." And it actually does a pretty good job of it. Uh, and so, what I want to show you here is that some things that I think works well with this, and then things that I would look at. Um, so, one, I like the structure of this. It gives each of the headings. So that's something that you could do in your own, right? It has all the different headings that were on the assignment. So that's good. Um, and so this will give you a sense of what it might look like. And you could try this out on your own. Now, keep in mind that this is really important to future things. So it's important that you go through these elements and really think through what it's saying. Because anything that you submit, first of all, um, you need to be uh, you need to be able to stand behind. So if you put a potential source listed here and it's not one listed on the assignment sheet, and it turns out that it's not a real source, that's a big problem, right? So you need to be very careful and read through closely different things as you're looking at this. Uh, and that's not even to say that you would use exactly this as a submission, but it gives you an idea of what we could possibly do. So let me just take you through how I would approach this if I were to use generative AI in this process. So first, I just said create a sample. All right. and it creates its own topic. Reimagining the workplace skills for human AI collaboration. All right, it fits within the piece, but that's not really the thing that I want to focus on. So then I said, okay, thank you, but I'm more interested in approaching this question. What are the potential benefits and drawbacks of emphasizing AI literacy in education? So then it gives me a proposal for a topic more related to that. And what I would do then is, honestly, I would probably throw away most of this, um, because I want to make sure that it's my own work and that it's my own, where I want to go with the project. I don't want to just rely on the whatever the generative AI thinks is a good idea. Um, so I would probably throw away most of this, but there's some really useful things. One, it does provide a starting point for potential sources from the list. And so I might start by looking at those sources based on the topic that I want and seeing if those fit. So it can cut down on some of that time of going through all the sources, but I may not be happy with those and I still might have to. One thing that actually, the thing that I found most helpful with this is the additional research areas that are presented that Claude presents me with, because these will give me ideas of things that I can research or look into, including possibly in my paper. So current examples of successful AI literacy programs in schools. That's not a bad idea, to think about as something to look at for this type of paper. Um, the same thing for all these other ones. So I found this to be actually really good at generating some ideas that I could possibly use, and possibly research on my own. So why I'm showing you this is, one, I want to show you what the AI can do. I also want to point out that there are certain things that will make it fairly clear um, that that AI was used to generate this sort of wholesale. And so you'd want to stay away from that, but you can use these things to help focus on your own piece, on what you are really interested in looking at, and then go from there. So, for instance, once I have these ideas, so let's see, what is it? It's suggesting that as my research question, I asked, to what extent should educational institutions prioritize AI literacy in their curriculum, and how can they balance this with traditional educational objectives? So that's not a bad research question, but there might be other things that I'm more interested in looking at. And so then I might need to reframe that as well. And so what you would do for this, and I want to be clear, I'm not suggesting that you plug this into a generative AI, come out with something and then edit it. But what I am suggesting is that you can provide a generative AI like Claude or ChatGPT the directions and ask it to help you brainstorm ideas. And ask it to help you understand maybe what's being looked for for particular aspects of this. So, for instance, since it has this question, since it has already the assignment there, I might ask it. I might say something, because again, the purpose is to learn. Is, I'm having difficulty understanding what a research question is and why that's even important, and be able to give you some explanation. Let's see. So, let's see what it says. A research question is a specific question your paper aims to answer. It's like a puzzle. And I agree with it here. Gives your paper focus and direction. Helps readers, well, okay, readers of the proposal, not readers of the essay necessarily, understand what you're investigating, makes it easier to organize, helps you decide what evidence and sources are relevant. And then it even gives some good help here in terms of some examples. So a weak research question would be, how is AI used in education? That's way too broad and vague, as it says. Is AI literacy good? It's too simple. What do teachers think about AI? And too general, lacks specificity. And then here we have some strong ones. And again, what's interesting here is that these are strong ones that you could evaluate and think about maybe incorporating part of this or thinking about a different focus. So let's look at these. To what extent should educational institutions prioritize AI literacy in the curriculum, and how can they? Oh, that's the one we just read. Okay, that was okay. How does the integration of AI literacy programs in K through 12? K through 12 is kindergarten through 12th grade, which is high school. Um, in K through 12 education impact students' critical thinking skills and career readiness? That's a fascinating question. Um, and it's interesting because we may not have a lot of data on that yet, but there's probably some things out there already. And again, this is another one that we might not have a lot of information on. What are long-term implications of emphasizing AI literacy in secondary education on, student career outcomes and adaptability to technological change? So there we have another possibility that's more focused. And so what you can see here is that you can use generative AI to, one, you could use it to generate a sample and then ask questions of the sample. You could use it to help you understand different aspects of the assignment and help you focus in on a particular topic that might work at this stage. So let's say, just for instance, like if I'm thinking of a working thesis statement, would a working thesis statement like AI should be banned from all K through 12 education uh, be good, be effective for this assignment. And its answer is actually pretty good, and it explains why. So it says, because this thesis is pretty um, absolute, as it says here, it's saying it should be banned. Um, and I think most people might agree that might think that that's not reasonable. Um, and so we would need to think about sort of what we're talking about. And we learned about thesis creation previously, especially from one of the textbook chapters. So these ones are more nuanced, but I want, again, just for the sake of argument here, I want to see if I can make it a little bit more um, stronger. I would like it to be a bit stronger in terms of being against over uh, saturation of AI in K through 12, or something that says that teachers shouldn't feel pressured to um, to implement AI for everything, as some might be pushing for. Let's see what it does. Okay, so it integrates that idea. The current push um, tends to undermine essential learning. And then, wow, it creates its own proposal based on what I want to focus on with my preliminary thesis. Uh, and it even changed some of the sources. And so, in some ways, this is pretty amazing um, because it's showing us sort of how these things can play out. But it's also scary because the our inclination uh, as humans generally is to try to well, we are generally averse to doing work, right? We always, and I'm guilty of this as well. Uh, that's just the way we function because there's so much to do. We want um, to allow something else to sort of take over certain things, and in that sense, it makes sense. And this is why it's dangerous because what could happen is I could just say, all right, this looks pretty good. All right, I'm just going to submit this. The problem with that is that if you're not understanding what you're submitting and you can't stand behind it, then that's problematic. And so you want to be creating something that is going to be appropriate for what you're thinking. Um, and so you may want to play around with this type of thing. You may, but don't include anything here. One that you don't understand completely, because you're presenting something as your own work, and two, make sure that it is what you want. And the only way to do that is to really write it out in your own ways. But this can help you focus. So that's my suggestion. This is getting a lot longer. This video is a lot longer than I had intended. Um, but I hope that what you're seeing is what you need to do is get this. You'll see the assignment. You'll see the criteria. You'll review what the final paper is asking. You'll think through possible readings and topics that you're interested in. And then you can go through this process that way and thinking about, okay, what is it that I really want to focus on? What might be my research question? From there, what might be my thesis? What would be sources that we've already read that would be part of that, etc. And you can kind of follow the format of using these headings as we've seen. Uh, and so that would help you to really go through it. But if you get stuck, you can go and see if you can get ideas from the generative AI as long as they're still your ideas. Now, this is what I have in the assignment directions regarding this piece. So you may use AI tools to brainstorm and understand basic concepts, but final selection of your topic, research question, thesis must be your own work. If you use AI in any capacity, include a brief statement at the end of your proposal detailing how you used it. And so if for those who really want to really delve into the AI piece, um, use it, play around with it, come up with questions, work through the material. And after you've done that and you've created a proposal that you really can stand behind, that you can say is your own work, then go back, look at all the chats, look at all the questions you asked, um, and then create a statement that says, this is how I used it. I first asked it for this, then I looked at this, then I came up with this idea. Um, and so if your submission, from my perspective, is clearly sort of has all, like hallmarks of very much an AI generated work, one of the things I will look for is the usage statement. And if that is clear, so there's a clear analysis and explanation of how you used it, and it shows that you're thinking through it and you're using it in a sophisticated way that's showing that the work that you're submitting is really your own work, um, then I'm okay with that. But I need to see that you're interacting with the material and that you are showing ownership of whatever you submit. So I'm hoping this video was somewhat helpful. Again, much longer than I had intended, but hopefully it shows you sort of the steps to go through this, and where it's all leading, which is eventually to write this paper, where you're going to be using sources to to make some sort of an argument, and using sources to back that up. And so you need to really understand the material, and the sources to do that. And you really need to be starting to think through that stuff right now, because before you know it, we'll be at the point where you'll be running a draft of the paper. Um, and at that point, you should have a good sense of sort of really what you're interested in. So I hope this was helpful. Again, I apologize that it's a much longer than I had intended.